So the US is in a war with Russia. However, this may not be the war that you were expecting. The war that we are fighting right now is a price war. What has been happening is the US has been very active in getting other countries to go up against Russia, to not buy their goods. For example, oil. And obviously, Russia doesn't like this, which is why we need to discuss the recent G7 price cap on Russian oil. This is big because Russia is now saying that they will not sell their oil to any country that agrees to a Russian oil price cap. Now, this was announced last week. However, I wanted to make sure I did a lot more research on this because this is a very, very important topic. This is a very, very big deal. If Russia decides to not sell their oil to not just the United States, but other countries as well, that's a huge deal because that will bring down the global supply of oil. And again, that means prices will increase. So here's what we know. The European Union just last week agreed they were going to set the price cap at just $60. Now, this is concerning to Russia because initially the price cap was going to be set at 65. Now, why does a price cap from 60 to 65 really matter? Well, according to experts, they say that for every dollar prices go up for Russian oil, that Russia actually gets $2 billion. Yeah, for every dollar per barrel, Russia gets $2 billion. Yeah, that's big because that actually helps them finance their war chest. And again, this is the big issue we're seeing all across the world is Russia is still at a war with Ukraine. And until that subsides, prices are going to remain elevated. And the interesting part about all this is that Ukraine wanted to see a Russian oil price cap of no more than $40. That would have really hurt Russia. But the problem is the European Union didn't agree on 40, they agreed on 60. And the reason why this was so important to get done as fast as it did is because the European sanctions, they start today. So, and this is a big deal because this is what was projected to happen if there was no price cap. The US came out and stated that European sanctions would drastically hurt the global supply of oil. And the reason for that is because the sanctions would have made it impossible for countries to go and get Russian oil. And again, that would have started today. And if that was the case, guess what? Prices for energy, prices for gas in Europe would have shot through the roof. Okay, but because of the $60 price cap, and again, the G7 has agreed on this. Now, I believe they still have to pass this, but they initially agreed that $60 is a good point, or a good starting point. But what you need to keep in mind is that if there was no price cap, then the supply of oil, not just Russian oil, but all oil, it would have been limited. Because again, Russia wouldn't have been selling their oil to these countries that have already imposed sanctions. And here's the other thing you need to understand. Russian seaborne oil is actually trading for less than $60 per barrel. Yeah, it's trading for less. Guess what that means? The price cap has not even kicked in. The price cap doesn't actually matter at this point because Russian oil is selling for less. Now, here's the big thing, and I want to discuss this with you because this is the worry. The worry is that when things take a turn, when prices go up and they pass that $60 mark, Vladimir Putin has stated that Russia will not sell their oil to any country that has agreed to the price cap. And then the Kremlin came out and made it very clear that they will only sell their oil if it's in the best interest of Russia. So, as soon as the price goes above $60 a barrel, the expectation is that Russia is going to cut off all countries that agreed to this price cap. Now, obviously, this will be devastating for the entire world because now the entire world is going to have to compete with the limited amount of oil that's out there. Russia will continue to use their oil and they will continue to sell to other countries. But for all the ones that agreed to that $60 price cap, they will not sell to us. This means that the United States will be impacted if there is a time when Russian oil exceeds $60 per barrel. And the expectation, according to experts, is this will happen sometime in February. So that is what we know regarding that $60 price cap for Russian seaborne oil. However, there's more problems on the horizon as well. And I want to address those too, because that also impacts how much we are paying for gasoline here in the United States. One of the big issues that's happening right now, and this is impacting everybody around the world, is that China is actually considering cutting back their COVID restrictions. This is good news for manufacturing. This is good news for our supply chains. We should get more products out there. However, this is also bad news for the average consumer, especially here in the United States, because as China rolls back their COVID restrictions, guess what? This means they will start using more fuel for manufacturing, for driving, transportation, shipping, everything in between. So because of that right there, guess what's going to happen with prices for gas? They're going to go up. And another issue as far as gasoline is prices are expected to go up around mid-February. And the reason for this is because historically, that's what they do. That is according to GasBuddy. GasBuddy has also stated that more people begin traveling around the late stages of winter. And a big deal here, freight is moved faster at that time as well. So it's not just that we are, getting out of the winter months and more people are traveling. It's now businesses are starting to, reorder new products because they're getting rid of all their stuff from the winter. They're buying stuff for the spring. And guess what? That means transportation costs increase, oil goes up, and obviously prices for everything go up as well. And let's talk about the last thing. The last thing, and this is still a major issue, and I've heard from multiple railroad workers that have addressed this as well, is there's still that possibility of a silent strike. As of December 9th, okay, so in just 4 days from shooting this video, we could potentially have a railroad strike. Or not a railroad strike. We could have a situation within the railroads. And the reason for that is because just this past weekend, Congress and President Biden, they agreed to pretty much block railroad workers from going on strike. Now, that is a problem for the railroad workers that really wanted to go on strike and make the railroads negotiate a better contract for them. However, that didn't get done. So as of right now, the expectation is that workers will go on a silent strike. And you're probably thinking, well, what is this? I've actually talked about this before, and I will do another video on this probably later today or sometime this week. But a silent strike is when workers go into work, they clock in, right? They punch their time card, whatever they do. They are at work, and then they do nothing. They pretty much do nothing. They sit there, they don't do their job, and they're almost forcing the railroads to fire them and go find somebody else, which will be very difficult, or they just let them do that and they have to negotiate the contract eventually. So here's the expectation. If all workers go on a silent strike, it will work. But if just some workers go on a silent strike and others don't, we're going to see this lagging effect of cargo slowly moving across the United States, which means prices are going to go up. We're going to see additional inflation. But at the same time, we're still going to have that issue of what's going on with the railroads moving forward. And that's part of the problem. But again, this means gas prices will likely go up as well. So that's what we know at this time. I know gas prices are one of those issues that many people face that, hey, I just can't afford it. I have to park my car or sell my car because it's just getting too expensive. But it's not just gas prices for vehicles. It's food costs go up, right? Shelter could go up, and we will see utility payments go up as well. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all the latest news and updates again. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.